Have you invested in single family real estate or small multi and are considering investing passively with a syndicator? Well, you could be losing a lot of money if you invest in the wrong market and definitely with the wrong person. So today we're going to talk about location and why it's so important. It's the number one most important thing in my opinion when analyzing a real estate deal. It's the first thing that we look at and it's something that you really need to pay attention to. Today I'm going to go over 7 key metrics that you need to look for when you're picking a location. My name is Garrett Lynch, and I help people become financially free with real estate. So let's get into it. So most investors are only looking at the numbers. New investors, I should say. And while the numbers tell a story and you can performa and cast things out into the future, they don't always represent the reality of what you're buying. And this is where location comes into play. So I'm going to give you an example. In the beginning of my real estate career, I owned a lot of properties that were D class and they looked really good on paper. So when you underwrote them, they showed extremely high returns. It was extremely attractive. And so we went and bought these. And the reason they looked so attractive is because the cost for the building was so cheap compared to the cash flow. You could pick up a 2 flat at the time for 80K, 40K unit. And then your rents you were getting were, 16, 1800 per unit. So it looked really good. But then when you got into it, the issue we had is that there were all kinds of variables that we couldn't put on paper that destroyed your NOI. Some of these issues and some of these problems that we ran into were crime. People shooting and then somebody getting upset and moving out and the cops being there and it being chaos. We had destruction, residents that just didn't care because their credit scores are so low. They didn't care if they got evicted or what happened to them. So they'd destroy your property and then they wouldn't be able to pay for the issues that they caused with your property. That happened a lot. Staff that was running your property. Listen, good staff is not going to come in and run your site in the hood. It's just not going to happen. They're going to want to work in better areas. So you've got a lower staff pool. That's not a great staffing pool. And yet those are the people that have to run your sites. And especially when there's so much drama and chaos, most of the time they're not being run right. So on paper, these things look great. When we got into it, we ended up losing money on the real estate because we couldn't get out of it after we bought into it. And it was a horrible thing. And so that's what some people may do. And that's what can happen in an extreme case of going in and purchasing a deal in the wrong location. There's variables that you can't control, and the management is extremely tedious and unpredictable. It's very hard to produce a return when you lose predictability. So I've invested in other markets that were flat as well, like Oklahoma City, Little Rock, Arkansas, different secondary and tertiary markets, and the returns look better on paper there. Problem is, same thing with the labor pool. Very difficult to find good people to run your site and to live there. On top of it, good resident pool. So you've got people losing jobs, things are flat, nothing's rising. And the issue is if you don't have a rising tide, you're going to be facing headwinds the entire time. A rising tide lifts all boats. And so you want to find markets that have a tailwind. We've pivoted exclusively to markets that only have a tailwind, and then we go and understand deeply each submarket within that market. So we know what we're buying, and we know what we're up against. We know the tenant base. We know everything that's going into that. And so those are the types of things you need to look at. Population growth. Is it going up? Are people moving there? Are people wanting to live there? You can look at moving trucks and seeing where they're going in the country to understand where the migration's happening. If you're in a migration city, like we picked the Southeast, there's a ton of migration there. So you're naturally going to have that population growth, and you can see the trend. Just Google it. You can see if it's been growing or not. And that's one thing you look at. You want to also look at job growth. Are there lots of jobs coming on the market? Are people able to work so that they can pay their rent? And that's a demand driver. People want to move to a market where there's a lot of jobs. Is that something that's happening? One of our main markets in Atlanta is an extremely popular location for headquarters. So there's a lot of different corporate companies headquarters there, produces a ton of jobs. So we love it. Income growth, or is there income growth in general in that economy? That's something that's very important. So that can people pay more for rent? Can they afford it? What's affordability like? what's the home value growth? We look at median household income for a specific submarket. That's one of the metrics we look at to make sure that people can afford the rent bumps that we're going to put in there, and to make sure we have a good tenant pool going in. So that's something that we look at city data, checking into that to make sure that we're in a good location. We also want to look at the crime map. Very simple. Look up to see what kind of location it is. Ask a broker, hey, what's the crime like in this area? Go visit it yourself. If you've ever kind of sniffed out crime in an area, it's pretty easy to pick up on. Especially, I just know it a lot better because I was in a lot of bad areas. But it just gets a little bit dingier. The retail gets a little bit grosser. You can kind of tell when things start to turn into a bad area, and it's not a place you want to be. There's also, you want to check the rent growth, make sure that there's rent growth in the market. Right now, it's difficult to find because there's a big oversupply issue in the main markets. But you look at historicals and see what is the rent done in general. There's going to be a higher demand for rent growth in the upcoming years just because of the oversupply of a lot of units in major markets. A-class units are being delivered, but they've stopped also. The new starts have stopped. And so that's a good thing. And so in the upcoming years, you'll see rent growth go back up. And then you also want to look for cap rates. What are the cap rates like in the market? This is speculative for every market, but it's a good indicator of a healthy market. Typically, you find in the better areas, there's lower cap rates. Less nice areas, you got higher cap rates. And so that's something else you can look at using data on CoStar or ask the broker as well. So my strategy now is to go into markets that have like B-class assets or C-class assets, even the asset itself, but it's in a location. So there's demand there. So if I deliver a product and I go and I renovate the asset, I know that people are going to want to live there because it's a desirable place to live. The school system's good. That's something to look at because people want their kids to go to good schools. The deal we just bought in Cumming, Georgia, that market is phenomenal. It's the top growing county in the entire state. And the schools are the best in the entire state as well. And so we're like, this is a perfect property to pick up because it's got those tailwinds going behind it. It was a C plus asset. We're turning it into a B by renovating it, making it look nice. And then we're raising the rents a bit. And people will pay it because they want to be in this location in a nice apartment. And so that's the business plan. It's how you create forced appreciation as an operator. And a lot of it has to do with location. You want to be on the main thoroughfare. You want to have frontage. You want to not be in an area with crime. We check the crime. I talked to the sheriff myself and no complaints there. And lo and behold, the business plan's working. So it's really key. It's something, the first thing we look at with any deal, we get a deal sent to us. We look at the location and there's areas inside submarkets inside of a main metro where we just won't go. We've crossed it out. If a deal comes our way, we say no to it right away because we do not want to be anywhere near there. And that's just discipline. It's having a buy box. In fact, all the maps, we take a map of a market and we map out all the red areas, the yellow areas, and the green areas, the areas we prefer to be in, some that we could possibly be in if it was a good deal, and the areas we absolutely will not touch. And so you can go on Google Maps and kind of talk to brokers and map out what those boundaries are for you. And that will be something that's super helpful. So proven operators investing in the right market, in the right location is super important. And so all the success of you investing into a syndication relies on the operator and their know-how as to how to go into markets properly and then execute a business plan. We're a very experienced operator with over 34 years of experience in this business combined. I personally been doing this for 13 years, so I have a pretty good handle on how these things go. If you're interested in learning more and interested in possibly investing with us or finding out if it's a fit for you, reach out to us at nighthawkequity.com, click the join button, and set up a call. We'd love to talk to you and see if it's a fit. So with that, I'll catch you guys next time.